morning from atop the farm here in Kentucky. We are just off the edge of the highest point of the farm here, and we've elected to stand here this morning. There's not very many. I'm pretty partial about this piece, obviously owning it, but there's not many spots in the country that I get to experience that are this beautiful this time in the morning. Like to pull into the farm down there, watch the big valley that's out in front, and the cornfield across the road on the neighbors, and some alfalfa, and it's a pretty blessed place to call home. So today is a big day on the property here. One of the biggest first projects that we've done. We've got our buckwheat established in our food plots. We got some of the sorghum Sudan grass in where our ag is going to be next year. And today's project, I have a gentleman coming out of Paul, who is coming out of Lexington. I'll give his information here on the video, with a mulcher. He has a mulcher on the front of a skid steer, and so when I first looked at this property, that was one of the things that jumped right out to me. Is, you know, in my designs, we either have an area where you have to open transition areas up, or we are trying to build the correct density, the correct habitat to create that edge for that. Now, more so probably than what we are doing today, more so what I see along the properties, like this year, 63 clients, and about 3/4 of the way through that. And what we'll see is the goal of creating edge, getting that proper daylight to the forest floor, because of mature timber that's been handled, such as TSI areas, for so long, and not focused on correct habitat, especially whitetail habitat, in front at the right point of impact in front of tree stands. Now, it might have correct habitat. A lot of these properties might have correct habitat along the scattered over the or certain portions, I should say, of a 40 acres or an 80 acres, but this is not one of those cases. This property is just the opposite. These draws that we have in here, these hollows, these draws, these couple of these valleys, that what we have is, I'll kind of put a video up here, or a link, a picture, I guess I should say, here on the video, so you can see the line of movement on this property is pretty much kind of a blown out rectangular shape, if you will. The house is at the bottom of the rectangle, and we are promoting that line of travel. Now, where that is it goes through some of the draws. We've got perfect security cover with contour from the outside, so we're able to drop in either up into or down into stand locations from our property lines, which is very powerful. And also, you can see here in the back, this is one of them draws, and you can see all the red bud that lines the edge. What's cool about this is, years ago, when they opened these fields, what they elected to do, instead of mulching it like we're going to do today, or pushing it in piles and burning it, what they elected to do, which I don't recommend doing with a habitat setup, with food plots, is clearing it. They cleared it and they pushed all the brush. That whole berm, that whole wood line right through there, is all a major brush berm, and a bunch of it has rock. So up here in Kentucky, or down here in Kentucky, you guys are probably familiar with that, but I'll show you some of it. Is the rock wall thing is pretty popular too, along field edges, that they take that slate rock and piled it up. So we've got some of those. So what I've done is, I took last week, I got the beginning of this week, I've got the skid steer with just a normal bucket on it, not the mulcher. I rented that, and I went around everywhere where our transition comes up into these bands that we're building to transfer deer out of one draw into the next. In any time that them transitions or corridors come up out of that into a field location, I went and poked a hole. What we're doing is, if this whole thing down through here, as you see, is a brush berm, it's real thick with the cedar that grow along the edge and the red bud. But what we've also done is, by doing that, what they have done for us, by doing that, now we're able to poke holes into it. Well, those holes that are getting poked into it, a couple of them are at stand locations, and it creates one heck of a pinch point in a funnel. So what we are doing today, Paul is coming with a mulcher, and I'm going to physically walk in front of that, a good safe distance in front of it, with a ribbons, or flags I should say, a couple cans of paint, and my hunt stand app. And because my transitions, I've walked them and laid them out, pinpoint accuracy on that, not just a guess and made from above, but I've actually walked these transitions and laid these out with the tracker. We are going to start mulching in the transitions. Now, it's so thick on the sides of these is what my goal is, and it's even pretty thick when I walked it before the vegetation was strong. I had walked it before I purchased it, when the leaves and everything were just starting to come on and it was starting to dense, but it was so thick even then. Now you've added that green vegetation on it and it's almost impenetrable. So what this is doing is it's not a farm before that allowed a lot of velvet movement, bucks to move around freely. Well, what happens is if those transitions are that thick, and my belief is if what I've seen in the past is if you don't open those up or get that correct, we're talking about opening them up. The other side of this, like we said, is opening the canopy up to get it thicker. Now we've got the density, I just need to we're creating trails. Now, instead of just going in and making random trails to get down off the edge of these fields down in, which most folks would do, I'm going around the entire transition to make sure that transition is cut out and it makes sense in front of the stand locations. So if we get that done, my goal today is to do the whole transition all the way around, 360 degrees around the property. If we get that done, then what we're going to do is I'm going to take the mulcher and go on a straight line from the tree stands, not from the licking branches, but from the tree stand back to my property line, mulch a straight as an arrow access trail. Then I'll go in and put the debris parallel with that so the deer don't want to be on it. So the first project here is to get these transitions cut in and the corridors cut in. Pretty excited about this because, like I said before, what happens to this is, so to finish my belief line that I was going on here, is what happens is if these bucks aren't able to call this or relate to this in the summer, at least it maybe not every day. They're traveling to good food. I've got ag across the road this year, on the neighbors, which is fine, great for them. I've got more ag to the east, but I don't have it. Well, the problem with that is if these bucks aren't able to relate to that during the summer, once, twice a month, whatever that case is, I feel that they don't have that homecoming aspect that we hear of, or that I talk of. It's kind of like that homecoming, coming back in the fall and knowing where they need to be in correct habitat during the fall. Well, if they can't research that, if they can't walk through that freely in velvet, or relate to it, they very, very, very seldom ever relate back to it in the fall, especially when that crucial time of the season is when they're cruising. They're going to be cruising somewhere else that is easier for them to get around and navigate, and something that they're more used to somewhere in the neighborhood. And so the goal is to take that and create that path through here today. We're going to it's my transition, but instead of opening the timber up, I don't have the timber, I have the density. I've already got the density, I'm just making the trail into it. So both aspects of the transition area need to be looked at and researched and figured out how that is. Do you have tall canopy? Taller the canopy, the wider that you have to cut your transitions out, so you dump some more sunlight in, so you create that browse in there, which creates edge in front of your tree stands. The other side of this is what like we said, what we're doing today is I've got all the density. I have very few over the top of the draw here in the back. Our north draw actually has some maybe some marketable timber in it, but not enough to cut it right now anyway. But it's because of that open canopy. That is what we refer to as the Copperhead Road down in there. And the reason we call it Copperhead Road is because the first time I walked it, I was anticipating seeing snakes. I mean, it's thick. It's got water, creek bottom down in there, dry creek bottom that we access in from. So what we're doing today is we're opening this up. We're getting this first major project done here on the farm, and it's not a cheap project, but it would physically take me alone 2 to 3 years, I can guarantee you, by cutting this out by hand, because you can't, the density is so thick that you can't physically cut it with a saw or a DR mower or whatever the case is. You can't physically cut it and get it away from you. Where having Paul come in with a mulcher is, we're mulching it, not flailing it and throwing it everywhere and leaving sticks. We're mulching that, dumping that right back down in front of the skid steer with that carbide mulcher, and it's gone. So what you want to do is, we're going to talk about this as we go through the day, but what we're looking to do is make sure that that mulcher goes, you know, emphasize with them that there has to be a little soil mixed in with that. You don't want a dense mulch base, especially when there's, you know, this much biomass that you're cutting through. Make sure that there's not that dense biomass left on the ground, because it won't regenerate. Now, I'm looking to kind of make a trail out of that, so that stays open, you know, not a foot trail for us initially, you know, that we're building today. That's going to be on the outside in, but the main transition you want to regenerate with new forbs and forages. And if it's too thick of a layer, it's not going to. Over the years it will, after that decays, but you want something that goes right back to creating that movable food in those transition areas that we speak of. So just make sure that, you know, when they mulch that, there's, you know, they back, you know, maybe do it once more time than what you normally would, just by going forward. Make it clean, you don't have the debris. Then you can go in and you can do, you know, you can hang your licking branches, you can do your hinge cutting on the edge of those transitions. It all fits together then. That's why we're so excited about having this done. Like I said, it's about $1,650 for the day is what I'm paying Paul to do this. But you take that, my time over 3 years, in my time, you know, at whatever you value time at, would be one heck of a lot more than $1,650. And when he's done today, 8 hours later, we are going to be in business. So we're going to go meet Paul and shake hands with him, welcome him to the farm here, go over a few things about how we're going to do this. I'm physically going to walk in front of it and paint the trail out as we go, walking per my design off from Hunt Stand, and we're going to get this project started. Come along with us, guys.